Hello, Malma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of the pandemic, and as the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the right balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. First, the Department of Foreign Affairs reported one more Filipino abroad contracting the coronavirus disease, bringing the total tally to 9,984. In its latest case bulletin, the DFA said there are no new fatalities, and there are 26 recoveries, mostly from the Asia and the Pacific and Middle East regions. This figure brings the total number of recoveries to 5,953, while the death toll remains at 733. Meanwhile, about 3,298 Filipinos abroad are still undergoing treatment. Malaysia reports 10 new confirmed cases of COVID-19. Gail Aldos reports from Malaysia. Hello, Gail.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good Monday.
There were 10 new COVID-19 cases reported yesterday, involving 8 import cases with 2 local transmissions, said Health Director General Tan Sri Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah. This brings the total number of positive COVID-19 cases to 9,267, with 183 infective cases that are active. The 8 import cases involved 3 locals and 5 non-residents. 3 cases were in Sarawak, which came from Japan, 3 from Indonesia, 2 cases are in Selangor and 1 in Kuala Lumpur, and 1 case each that came from Maldives and Mexico, who are in Kuala Lumpur. Meanwhile, both local transmissions involved Malaysians from the Tawar cluster in Kedah. Apart from that, Dr. Nur Hisham said 10 people had recovered from COVID-19 yesterday, making the cumulative number of patients who recovered to 8,959 cases, which is 96.7% of the overall total number of cases. Furthermore, there were no deaths reported, and the overall fatalities due to the virus remained at 125 cases. Dr. Nur Hisham said to date, 9 positive cases are being treated at intensive care unit, with 4 patients requiring respiratory assistance. On the Tawar cluster in Kedah, Dr. Nur Hisham announced 2 new cases from the cluster, bringing the number of COVID-19 infections in the cluster to 65 cases. As at 12 noon yesterday, 3,286 people from the cluster have been screened. In Kedah, 2,758 were tested, with 54 positive cases detected, while 2,362 individuals were found negative, while 342 individuals are still waiting for their results. Furthermore, in Penang, 517 people were screened, with 11 positive cases detected, while 506 individuals were negative. Finally, in Perak, all 11 screenings turned up negative, and there were no new testings carried out. Meanwhile, Dr. Nur Hisham said 3 new cases were reported in the Alam cluster in Sarawak, while 27 people were tested as at noon yesterday. From this total, 7 individuals were found positive, while 18 tested negative and 2 still waiting for their results. That is all. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Gail, for your updates there. Thank you, EBC Kuala Lumpur Bureau.
Thank you, Alma. Reporting live from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, this is Gail Aldos. We live in interesting times.
Thanks, Gail. From Malaysia, let's go now to Thailand, where the travel bubble tours will begin on October 1. Let's see what that means. Here's Ian Celada.
Phuket travel bubbles may begin from October 1st. Mr. Pripat revealed the news at the SANTOS NEU Normal event held at Centraragon at Central Plaza Lat Pao, Bangkok last August 20. During his speech to attendees at the event, Mr. Pripat said that Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha had approved Phuket travel bubbles to begin from October 1st. He added that he hopes to do the same in main tourism provinces in other regions. Minister Pripat explained that at the latest meeting of the newly formed Center of Economic Situation Administration last Wednesday, the committee unanimously agreed to open Phuket as the first destination in the travel bubble campaign and called the procedures to be assessed as the Phuket model. The news comes from the restrictions. Tourists will be limited to staying in the alternative parking system, but within a 1-kilometer radius of the hotel. giving them access to the seashore in many instances. A safe and sealed scheme to allow limited tourism has already been discussed. During mandatory 14-day quarantine, each tourist will be required to pass 2 COVID-19 tests. After the 14 days, tourists will be free to travel within Phuket. After the further week and another test, they will be allowed to travel throughout the kingdom. He added, not only will the foreign tourists have to stay within specified areas, but also hotels and restaurant staff. If they leave the area, they will have to self-quarantine at their place for 14 days. Mr. Tripathi was asked by the Prime Minister to research and choose 6 main provinces in each region to open up for travel bubbles, like Phuket. The main provinces may be Bangkok, Chiang Mai, Ubon Ratchathani, Chonburi, Ratchaburi, and Krabi. He said, however, one very important thing is the acceptance and readiness of the local people. You have to listen to the local people's opinions first before doing anything. Minister Tripathi, together with officers from the Ministry of Public Health, Ministry of Transport, and Ministry of Interior will inspect Phuket on September 5 and 6 to check the island's readiness. Reporting from Phuket, Thailand, this is Ian Silada, and we live in interesting times.
No agreement on whether international flights can now resume in Vietnam, and private medical establishments in Vietnam are now allowed to conduct COVID-19 tests. Joining us live is Eliana Faith Sebastian. Eliana.
Hi, Alma.
Hi. Yes, go ahead.
Here are the latest updates. Here in Vietnam, there's no consensus in Vietnam on resuming its international flights. Experts are unable to agree on whether international flights should resume along with safety measures as the COVID-19 outbreak continues. The Vietnam Aviation Business Association last week called on the government to resume flights to countries that have contained the pandemic and allow foreign tourist entry if they meet pandemic prevention requirements. Deputy Chairman of the association, Boy Duanne, said aviation is a catalyst for economic growth, and there are destinations that have high demand for travel to and from Vietnam, such as Guangzhou, China, Tokyo, Japan, and Seoul, South Korea. He stated that a gradual resumption would help airlines survive and keep their employees. He added that the International Civil Aviation Organization has provided guidelines for traveling amid the pandemic, and Vietnam should issue its own regulations. Economist Le Dang Duan concurred, saying resumption of flights would help the tourism and hospitality sectors, which have suffered because of the pandemic, to recover. He stated that many foreign business executives also want to travel to Vietnam, and controlling the outbreak must go along with reviving the economy. To start with, Vietnam could allow 3 flights a week on 1 or 2 routes to assess the situation and charge travelers quarantine fees. Each province and city could designate 3 or 4 hotels for quarantine, while business people with limited time could furnish their medical certificates before departure and be tested on landing in Vietnam, Duan added. Nguyen Si Dung, former deputy director of the National Assembly Office, agreed, saying that they cannot keep their doors closed forever and that flights should be resumed so that businesses could recover. A spokesperson for budget airline Vietjet said aviation companies have been the worst affected amid the pandemic, and the government should allow regular services to restart to countries that have contained the COVID-19. But another economist, Ngo Tri Long, warned it might be too soon to resume the fight, pointing out that the lack of strict control over the illegal immigration is possibly the cause of the COVID-19 resurgence Da Nang and some countries have seen. For now, only experts and business people should be allowed to enter Vietnam, and international flights should only be resumed when countries stop recording new cases, he added. Of some 64,500 readers who voted in the survey on the Vietnamese edition of VN Express this month, 78% rejected resumption of international flights for the moment. In other news, private medical establishments are now allowed to conduct COVID-19 tests. The government has agreed with the Ministry of Health's proposal to allow public and private medical establishments to conduct COVID-19 testing according to its latest resolution. The ministry is responsible for announcing the list of establishments eligible for COVID-19 testing and coordinating with the Ministry of Finance to decide the test prices. Vietnam's testing capacity has ramped up quickly from just 2 testing sites nationwide in late January this year to 120 by May. Last April, the Ministry of Health said Vietnam was one of the leading countries in the world with the highest proportion of COVID-19 tests in relation to positive cases. The ministry added that the nation's daily capacity in testing reaches 27,000 samples, and the total tested samples rose to 212,800 as of April 12. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you very much. Eliana, thank you. EBC Vietnam Bureau.
Reporting live from Da Nang, Vietnam, this is Aliana Sebastian. We live in interesting times.
And we have breaking news coming in. 2 explosions occurred today in Jolo, Sulu. In an initial report, the Bangsamoro Autonomous Regional Police Office said the first explosion occurred at 11:53 a.m. and the second happened at around 1 p.m. Police said that while conducting a sweep inside the Paradise Food Shop in Barangay Wald, it is where the first explosion occurred. The second blast happened. The police have yet to identify the perpetrators and the casualties. Investigation is still ongoing. Now, in Singapore, the country will now allow travelers from Brunei and New Zealand to visit starting in September in a small, cautious step by the virus-hit aviation hub to restart air travel, according to officials. The city-state closed its borders in March to tourists and short-term visitors and later implemented a partial lockdown as coronavirus outbreaks swept through dormitories housing hundreds of thousands of migrant workers. Arrivals from Brunei and New Zealand will be subjected to a virus test in lieu of a 14-day quarantine. Transport Minister Ong Ye Kung said the move aims to strike a balance between controlling the spread of the virus and reviving air travel, a key driver of the trade and tourist-reliant economy. Now, Brunei and New Zealand were chosen as they are small countries and have controlled the virus very well, according to Ong, adding the move was unilateral. The quarantine period has also been cut from 14 to 7 days for travelers from low-risk regions, including Australia, including Victoria State, China, Taiwan, Vietnam, and Malaysia. Mr. Ong said last week Changi Airport used to move 1,000 aircraft a day, but this number had fallen to 150. The Rohingya in Myanmar's conflict-racked Rakhine state expressed fears of a coronavirus outbreak, reaching their overcrowded camps after a spate of infections sent the state capital into lockdown. Nearly 130,000 Rohingya Muslims live in what Amnesty International describes as apartheid conditions in camps around Sitwe. The city has recorded 48 cases in the past week, making up more than 10% of about 400 cases so far registered in Myanmar. We are extremely worried about the virus because we are living in limbo and it won't be easy to control, according to Rohingya Kiao Kiao. Authorities visited the Chang camp this week to talk about social distancing and impossibility as 10 families typically squeeze into a single house, and gave out hand sanitizers and face masks. An overnight curfew order has been in place since Friday, while all public transport, including domestic flights into the capital, was suspended. Rakhine State has long been a flashpoint for ethnic and religious conflict. The embattled Rohingya Muslim minority are widely regarded as foreign Bengalis, despite having lived in Myanmar for generations. They lack citizenship rights and their freedom of movement is restricted across the country. A local Rakhine parliamentarian this week blamed the Rohingya for the virus spread in a Facebook post that was later taken down. Some 750,000 Rohingya fled to neighboring Bangladesh following a military crackdown in 2017, operations that Myanmar is currently facing genocide charges for the UN's top court, or at the UN's top court. Further north in the state, the military is also battling the Arakan Army, a rebel group seeking more autonomy for the state's ethnic Rakhine Buddhists, and violent clashes have displaced thousands of civilians from their homes. In Morocco, where 3 cases were found this week, Rakhine residents feared a halt to food donations to the displacement camps, according to camp leader HLA Mang O. And here are the latest coronavirus cases in the ASEAN region. Take a look. Brunei has 143 confirmed cases and 3 deaths. Cambodia has 273 confirmed cases, 0 deaths. Indonesia has 153,535 cases and 6,680 deaths. In Laos, it has 22 confirmed cases, 0 deaths. In Malaysia, 9,267 confirmed cases with 125 deaths. Myanmar has 450 cases, 0 deaths. Now the Philippines has 189,601 confirmed cases with 2,998 deaths. Singapore saw 87 new cases on August 23 that brought the total to 56,353, and it currently has 27 deaths recorded. Now, Thailand saw 5 new cases on August 23, taking the total to 3,395, and they have 58 recorded deaths. Vietnam has 1,016 cases, and it has currently 27 recorded deaths. Now, global cases around the world totals to 23,349,139. Global deaths number at 807,463, according to the Johns Hopkins tally. ASEAN in Focus will be right back.
The New Era University, in its 45th year of excellence, discipline, and service to humanity, will offer online education at all levels beginning this first semester academic year 2020 to 2021 through the NEU Virtual Learning Environment, or NEU VLE. New Era University offers a complete basic education cycle from kindergarten up to senior high school, offering all strands. NEU has 18 colleges, and 2 graduate schools. It also offers ALS and ETF. Best of all, NEU has the most affordable tuition fees among private universities in the Philippines. NEU is at Quezon City, the city of San Fernando, Pampanga, General Santos City, South Cotabato, Lipa City, Batangas, and Pinugay, Baras, Rizal.
New Era University is under the stewardship of Dr. Dilo L. Rosas.
What are you waiting for? Be part of the new normal. Enroll now. Classes start on October 5, 2020.
Welcome back. A Malaysian coroner has begun an inquiry into the death of a French-Irish teenager whose unclothed body was found in the jungle after she went missing on holiday last year. Take a look. Nora Quarin, a 15-year-old with learning difficulties, disappeared from the resort where she was staying with her London-based family, triggering a 10-day hunt involving helicopters, sniffer dogs, and hundreds of searchers. Now, her body was discovered close to the jungle retreat, and an autopsy found that she probably starved and died of internal bleeding after spending about a week in the dense rainforest. Malaysian police insisted there was no sign of foul play and authorities classed the case as requiring no further action. But her parents, who believe there was a criminal element to her death, as they say the teen would not have wandered off alone, pushed for an inquest, and that started today, as you can see here. Her parents, Miab and Sebastian Corin, said in a statement, quote, "We hope that all avenues surrounding Nora's disappearance will be fully explored and not just the theory which the police has always favored. Only we, her parents, have a real understanding of what Nora was and was not capable of, and up to now it seems that her handicap has not been truly taken into account." Now, they describe the inquest, which runs until September 4 and will be live streamed to the public, as a crucial element in the fight for truth and justice for Nora. Last week, the coroner went to the Dusun Resort south of Kuala Lumpur, where the teenager disappeared from her room on August 4, 2019, the day after the family had checked in. A fire engulfed the office of Indonesia's Attorney General Saturday evening in downtown Jakarta. Take a look. Now, there were no immediate reports of casualties and did not say what might have caused the blaze, which spread quickly through the six-story building. Images showed firefighters dumping water onto the raging blaze, which appeared to consume most of the building, with more than 100 personnel taking part in the effort. That is according to local media. The fire broke out shortly after 7 p.m. local time. Harry Setiono, a spokesman for the Attorney General's office, said, quote, "It started on the 6th floor and there are no casualties so far," unquote. The office had been closed since public holiday started on Thursday. According to Setiono, there was no activity at the building when the fire struck. China's foreign ministry defended its Coast Guard, saying they had carried out law enforcement activities and their actions are understandable after the Philippines accused them of illegally seizing fishing equipment near a disputed shoal in the South China Sea, sparking a fresh spat with Beijing. Beijing also accused the Philippine military aircraft of invading Chinese airspace in another disputed section of the sea and urged Manila to immediately stop illegal provocative activities. Take a look.
中国海警在中国黄岩岛海域依法开展执法活动，无可厚非。非方派军机侵入中国南沙驻守岛礁邻近的空域，损害了中方主权和安全。中方敦促非方立即停止非法挑衅活动。
Scarborough Shoal, one of several reefs controlled by China, is one of the region's richest fishing grounds and a flashpoint between the two countries. The Philippine Foreign Ministry said it has lodged a diplomatic protest over the illegal confiscation by the Chinese Coast Guard in May of floating devices known as payao that are used to catch fish. It also resolutely objected to China issuing radio challenges to Philippine aircraft conducting maritime patrols in areas of the sea claimed by Manila. China's foreign ministry defended the Coast Guard, saying they had carried out law enforcement activities and that their actions are understandable. It also accused Philippine military aircraft of invading Chinese airspace in another section of the sea and urged Manila to immediately stop the illegal provocative activities. Scarborough Shoal is 240 kilometers west of the Philippines' main island of Luzon. Beijing claims almost the entire South China Sea, despite competing partial claims from Brunei, Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Vietnam. It has ignored the 2016 International Tribunal ruling that declared its assertion as without basis. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana has said provocations in the hotly disputed areas in the South China Sea are coming from the Chinese, who have illegally occupied some features within the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone, or EEZ. Lorenzana was responding to China's claims that the Philippines is doing illegal provocations by sending its patrol aircraft over the Spratlys and reefs occupied by Chinese forces. In a message to reporters, he said, "Illegal provocations? Now that area is within our EEZ." Their so-called historical rights over an area enclosed by their 9-line doesn't exist except in their imaginations. Lorenzana said Philippine aircraft and ships conducting patrol sorties are doing so within the country's EEZ, just like Filipino fishermen going about with their lawful business. He said, quote, "Our fishermen are within our EEZ and likewise, our ships and planes conduct patrol sorties within our area," he added. They, China, are the ones who have been doing provocations by illegally occupying some features within our EEZ. Hence, he said, they have no right to claim they are enforcing their laws, unquote. On Thursday last week, the Department of Foreign Affairs lodged a diplomatic protest against China over the illegal confiscation of some Filipino fishermen's equipment of the Scarborough Shoal, or Baho de Masinloc, or Panatag in Filipino, by the Chinese Coast Guard in May. It slammed China's continuing illicit issuances of radio challenges on Philippine aircraft conducting legitimate regular maritime patrols in the West Philippine Sea. The Scarborough Shoal is a triangle-shaped coral reef situated 124 nautical miles off Zambales. In a 2016 landmark decision, the Permanent Court of Arbitration ruled that both Filipinos and Chinese, as well as other fishermen from other countries, have traditional fishing rights at the Scarborough Shoal, and that China cannot restrict access to that area. Since a standoff between some Chinese ships and the Philippine Navy in 2012, China has maintained a steady presence in the area. Filipino fishermen were only able to operate back after Manila pursued friendlier ties with China in 2016, which paved for a temporary arrangement between the two nations. The Philippines has officially informed other members of the World Trade Organization, or WTO, that it is temporarily closing its borders to Brazilian poultry due to the threat of COVID-19. In its notification to the WTO, Manila said it's temporarily disallowing Brazilian foreign meat establishments from exporting chicken meat to the Philippines, pending the results of a thorough assessment to be conducted by the Department of Agriculture on the matter. On August 14, Agriculture Secretary William D. Dar ordered the import ban following reports that a sample of Brazilian chicken wings shipped to China tested positive for COVID-19. The DA said the ban was also based on the fact that a lot of workers in Brazilian FMEs contracted COVID-19, raising concerns over the health and safety standards being observed by exporters. The Bureau of Animal Industry, the agency that regulates meat imports, said the safety and wellness of workers in FMEs is one of Manila's export accreditation requirements. The Philippines stressed that food safety was its paramount concern when it imposed the ban. It also noted that there is no relevant international standard regarding the import ban. There have been numerous reports on the detection of SARS-CoV-2, the causative agent of COVID-19, in a surface sampling conducted in chicken meat imported from Brazil to China, Manila said in its August 21 notification to the WTO. ASEAN in Focus will be right back. Filipinos have reacted to the re-emergence of COVID-19 community cases in New Zealand. Bringing us that report, here's Greg Besa.
The Filipino community in New Zealand was part of the strong and united 5 million team that worked together with the government in successfully stamping out the first wave of COVID-19 cases that hit the country during the first 2 quarters of this year. As New Zealand is now experiencing a second wave of the coronavirus infection by community transmission, members of the Filipino community are again willing and ready to be part of such team as the government is reinforcing once more its go hard, go early strategy aimed at defeating the resurgence of COVID-19 for the second time around. Due to new COVID-19 community cases in South Auckland, the Prime Minister, upon consultation with her cabinet and health officials, decided to put the Auckland region in lockdown at Alert Level 3, while the rest of the country was under Alert Level 2 for 3 days from the midday of 12 of August. As the number of cases grew while the government was determining the source of the community infection, the status of alert levels was extended to another 12 days until the midnight of 26 of August. In the Auckland region in particular, wherein travels are strictly prohibited unless classified as essentials, members of the Filipino community are doing their best to comply with the government guidelines and restrictions in terms of their movement and in adhering to health and safety requirements. They are also taking advantage of the lockdown to do productive activities within their respective bubbles. Yet, just like the rest of the population in New Zealand, a number of Filipinos from various backgrounds have expressed their views, sentiments, and apprehensions on the re-emergence of the coronavirus in the country.
I appreciate the Prime Minister's quick decision to move and impose alert level 3 in Auckland greater area to combat the resurgence of the COVID-19.
The government made the right decision to impose restriction again, but they should have a solid plan. As a health worker, my message to my fellow nurses in New Zealand and all over the world, we should keep ourselves safe by observing all the necessary precautions in preventing the spread of the disease.
Yeah, initial reaction regarding us going back to lockdown 3, especially here in Auckland with a community transfer. Like everybody, I guess we were a bit scared and unsure of what was going on. But then again, realizing how we tackled the first lockdown, we just had to say and trust the government at this stage. They've done a good job.
It was really a surprise to learn that there is a community transmission of COVID-19. Well, that is after 100 days of no active cases. To be honest, it created a bit of panic in my family until it sinks in and it becomes our new normal again. Well, in Auckland, we are alert level 3 at the moment. The impact of this is to my students. As a teacher, it's a huge and massive impact to the learning of our students.
Surprising to find ourselves back to lockdown last Wednesday. And it was unbelievable because we get used to living our lifestyle in alert level 1. But I'm pretty sure that it was all for our own good and for our own safety. So let's just comply to the lockdown rules. Let's all stay home, wear masks if we're going out, and let's all hope and pray that this crisis will soon come to an end.
COVID-19 pandemic has once again reappeared, causing Auckland to go back to level 3 and all the other places here in New Zealand back to level 2. As a Cambridge student, it is very worrying for us, as far as I know, that our end-of-year exams may or may not be happening.
Ang masasabi ko lang po na bumalik po ang second wave na COVID-19 dito sa New Zealand ay iba yung pag-iingat, lalong-lalo na po kami mga FW rito ay nangangamba rin po sa pagkat ang sakit na to ay talagang lumalaganap na sa buong mundo at marami na rin po napipinsala na mga trabaho, lalong-lalo na po yung mga kababayan natin dito sa New Zealand na walan ng trabaho po.
Ang reaksyon ko po sa muling pagbabalik ng COVID-19 dito sa bansang New Zealand ay ayun po nakakalungkot at muli po ay bumalik kami sa dati na kailangan ng social distancing
lalo na po sa pamimili, kailangan mo rin mag-ingat at minsan ay hindi ka malayang nakakapunta sa mga kaibigan mo, sa mga mahal sa buhay mo.
On the other hand, Philippine Ambassador to New Zealand, His Excellency Mr. Jesus Domingo, is calling the cooperation of the Filipino community in abiding with the government's COVID-19 guidelines, as he is reassuring them of the Philippine Embassy's continuing services amid the reactivation of alert levels across the country.
Regarding the recent announcement of Alert Level 3 in Auckland and Alert Level 2 sa iba-ibang parte ng New Zealand, we just advise our kababayan na sumunod tayo sa mga patakaran and protocols regarding the alert levels, and just generally stay home, stay safe, and this is not a cause to panic. Otherwise, New Zealand is still one of the best has one of the best managed responses to COVID-19. Just also to remind na the embassy, of course, remains open. There's no effect in our schedules. Tuloy-tuloy po ang serbisyo namin. And also, if you need to go home through the repatriation flight, please register with the embassy kung hindi pa kayo naka-register sa amin, and follow our Facebook page and our website for updates on other activities and developments regarding repatriation, COVID-19, and embassy services.
As the government is waging another battle against COVID-19, Director General of the Ministry of Health of New Zealand, Dr. Ashley Blomfield, is rallying once more the support of the 5 million team by saying, and I quote, "We have done this before. We can do it again." From Lower Hutt, Wellington Region, New Zealand, this is Greg Besa. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Greg. ASEAN in Focus will be right back.
The New Era University, in its 45th year of excellence, discipline, and service to humanity, will offer online education all levels beginning this first semester academic year 2020 to 2021 through the NEU Virtual Learning Environment, or NEU VLE. New Era University offers a complete basic education cycle from kindergarten up to senior high school, offering all strands. NEU has 18 colleges, and 2 graduate schools. It also offers ALS and ETI. Best of all, NEU has the most affordable tuition fees among private universities in the Philippines. NEU is at Quezon City, the city of San Fernando, Pampanga, General Santos City, South Cotabato, Lipa City, Batangas, and Pinugay, Baras, Rizal.
New Era University is under the stewardship of Dr. Nilo L. Rosas.
What are you waiting for? Be part of the new normal. Enroll now. Classes start on October 5, 2020.
Philippine trials for Japan's antiviral drug Avigan as potential treatment for COVID-19 patients have yet to start. Health Secretary Maria Rosario Vergeire said the trials were supposed to start on August 17, but there were a lot of processes that were not finished yet. The DOH first said the trials may start on August 10. She said so far, only the Philippine General Hospital has gotten the go signal to serve as a site for the clinical trials. Apart from PGH, the DOH had said the Santa Ana Hospital, Dr. Jose M. Rodriguez Memorial Hospital and Quirino Memorial Medical Center would serve as clinical trial sites. According to Vergere, the trials will start next month, barring hitches. Filipinos are participating in several clinical trials for potential COVID-19 vaccines too. The Philippines has offered to be a site for phase 3 of the clinical trials for a potential Russian vaccine, which has been approved by the Russian government. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.
Established 1975, rising in the list of top-performing universities in the country, a pioneer in inclusive education and an institution with a dynamic education in response to